Welcome to Red and Yellow, the podcast about all things to do with refereeing at grassroots level, looking at the laws of football, speaking to guests and trying to help you become a better referee, with Adam Humphreys and me, Ed Connell.
Hello, it's Adam here and welcome to this episode of Red or Yellow. I just wanted to jump on here before the episode started and remind you to send us your questions about anything refereeing. And that way we can hopefully help you improve your game as well as help all of the listeners improve their games as well. The best place to send us your question is via our loyal listener WhatsApp community, which you can join by clicking the link in the show notes, or send us an email or find us on social media. It's at Red or Yellow Pod. Added to that, please subscribe to the podcast, and that way our meandering chats about refereeing will magically appear on your phone whenever we release a new episode. And lastly, all views expressed on this podcast are that of myself, Adam Humphreys, and not that of Football Queensland. Now that's all done, let's get on with the show. Wow, this feels like a rare feat at the moment, doesn't it? Hello, Mr. Connell, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm not too bad, thank you very much. It feels like it's been far too long since I've heard your dulcet tones, and that means it's probably been far too long for the listeners as well. Hey,
I think it has been a long time. I think our last podcast was published at the beginning of June, and we were talking about what was going to be happening at the Euros, and we said it was too early to be talking about pre-season stuff. We'd talk about that at some point in the future, and here we are at the coming towards the end of July, the new season looming large. It's been a while.
It has.
But this is episode 30 of our podcast, Adam. It's our 30th episode we're recording.
I think we're doing well. And I've been very encouraged by the amount of people who have asked me, when is the next episode coming out? And
I know.
In the community group, they're all asking. It's been lovely, and that's really nice. And twice I think I let you down. And so I will take that on myself. That's fine. I completely forgot that we'd arranged something, and that life got on top of me. But really and truly, we all know the real reason why we haven't been able to record, and it's because Ed's been jet setting again.
I have been away twice, I think. Since
exactly.
We last spoke.
And before we last spoke, you was in the Himalayas. So
I know. I think I've been to Mykonos and only just got back on Sunday from my refereeing trip to Vienna, which I should tell you about in a little while.
Absolutely,
because that was fun.
All the listeners are going to start asking us, like, are you one of those people who go on Secret Millionaire on the BBC or something, aren't they? The amount you get away.
Or am I domiciled abroad for tax reasons?
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah. I imagine you didn't vote Labour because they're going to get rid of those people, aren't they?
I'm legitimately in the UK and just have the good fortune of a generous holiday allowance. And a single man with no kids means I've got disposable income to travel. There we go.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Well, I suppose we should talk very quickly about.
Oh, sorry, wait. Let's just. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but let's not just leave that hanging. For any listeners who are interested, Ed is definitely single, and he is definitely open to chatting about that.
No, I don't think I am actually, but it's very nice of you to try and find me love on a referee's podcast. I think it's probably the last place I'm likely to find it, but there we go. The sentiment is well intentioned. So news really. So most important thing that's happened since we last spoke, I guess, is the Euros. Has been the most significant footballing event. And I thought the Euros, well, from a spectacle, I didn't think they were great. I think there were lots of low-scoring games, not many goals, if any, I think, scored from direct free kicks. It was just, and a lot of the big teams didn't really turn up in terms of form. So I think as a spectacle, it wasn't that great. But from a refereeing perspective, my review of it is I thought that the big positive that came out of it is seeing how the new semi-automated VAR for offside works. And I would say it worked very well. I think the best thing about it was that, as was promised, it did reduce down significantly the time taken to have offside decisions. They were pretty quick.
Yep.
I liked the fact that in the stadium they were putting up the graphics and the explanations I don't know whether that's going to be adopted in the Premier League this season. I
Hmm.
sincerely hope it is because I think it's a really good thing. And the only thing generated, I felt, was a lot of people sort of moaning about, oh, well, is offside really meant to be determined by a toe being ahead of, someone else's
I mean, yes, it
body
is.
part?
That's exactly what
But
it's meant to be determined by.
that's the law. And if
Yep.
we're going down the route of technology, we have to accept that that's what's going to happen. But I was really I don't know about you, but I was generally happy with the way VAR worked in the Euros. Any thoughts?
I'm not gonna lie. I think I watched one game of the Euros, and that was the final. Um, I can't. I don't really have a huge comment. It's just so difficult here. Like, games are at like, what were they at? They were like 5 a.m. and 2 a.m.
Yeah,
And so I'm just, it was really hard to keep on top of. I tried to like keep on top of it in the meta way we do in 2024 through podcasts and through, online clips and stuff like that. But I think from what I could tell, the referees generally got a good rap, which is good to see. Youngest ever man to take charge of is it a major championship final?
yeah, I think
Which
so.
and the Frenchman, which I thought was good and thought he handled that well. And yeah, that's really all I have to comment. I mean, obviously there was the handball in the Spain-Germany game, and then there was the penalty for Harry Kane, with probably the two biggest decisions that anyone was really ever talking about. Or maybe that's just in
Yeah,
my echo chamber. But no, other than that, I thought it was a pretty good. I thought it was pretty fair and pretty decent tournament. And it's nice that for once, it wasn't talking about whether players are encroaching the field of play during a penalty shootout and stuff like that. Like, it just felt like the rhetoric had been dialed down a little bit on the referees compared to the World Cup a few years before that. So that's always positive and nice to hear.
yeah, and there are always going to be controversial decisions, particularly the ones you just mentioned. But I think on the whole, people were generally happy
Mm,
with the referees. They sort of weren't taking the headlines in the main. I mean, I think the kind of time's passed to sort of analyze individual decisions that happened during the course of the competition. But
mm,
I was just wanted to raise something that arose at the very end of the final because it's caused a bit of debate amongst my sort of referee friends. Just to jog people's memories, in the England-Spain final, it got to 90 minutes. There was then 4 minutes of added time.
hmm
And I roughly speaking, I would say that about 2 minutes of that 4 minutes was spent by Spanish players sort of lying on the floor with, feigning injury or with injuries. And the expectation I felt from people watching, and certainly the people I was watching with, was that that would then be accounted for. And so 94 minutes would become sort of 96 minutes. Um, but I think from having spoken with refereeing friends that I'm probably in the minority. But my problem with the fact the referee blew up at 94 minutes is that it just encourages players to time waste, because if you know the referee is not going to add on time for any time that the ball's not in play because someone's injured, then what's to stop someone just doing what the Spanish players did, which was going down with cramp, sitting on their backsides for 2 minutes and depriving the opponents of the opportunity to score. But I mean, I don't know. Do you have a different view?
I definitely have a different view. Firstly, I think you're looking at it from an English point of view, and if it wasn't a one goal incident in it, you would care about it. If they were 2 or 3 nil up, you wouldn't even bat an eyelid at it, right? And in fairness, if they were 2 or 3 nil up, the referee would have just blown it probably a minute earlier in stoppage time anyway. He wouldn't have given the 4 minutes. He probably would have just given 3 or 2, because the game was over and England didn't look like scoring, let alone scoring 2 or 3 goals. The other point is, with something like this, is it what you did throughout the rest of the game? Like, I have the same issue with this as I do with, it's kind of like when it's a tight game and you're getting towards the end of the second half, and you always get players, I'm sure you've experienced this, Ed. You get players screaming at you about the goalkeeper taking too long to set up a goal kick, or taking too long to do this or that. And the goalkeeper is actually doing nothing different than what he has done, or they have done for the entirety of the game. And then the irony is when the team who's complaining, who are chasing the goal, their goalkeeper gets a goal kick, he takes just as long. And so it's like nothing has changed. Just because we're in stoppage time, the referee is not stopping the watch or is stopping the watch. Whatever the referee has chosen to do when a player goes down with cramp, when a player goes down kind of like talking about a free kick or wanting that time and just playing the time a little bit. Why change the rules just because suddenly you're in stoppage time? It just doesn't need to be done. You just play it. I'm not being funny. It's England's fault for not making the game competitive enough to make sure that didn't happen. There's always going to be gamesmanship. It's a sport. There's going to be sportsmanship. That's what it is. And I just don't think it was overly excessive. I don't think it was overly time wasting. Every time a Spanish player went down, they were fouled. So what's the issue?
Well, I mean, I appreciate you kind of thinking about it from an English perspective. I mean, I, as you know, first and foremost support Scotland. I don't think I'm seeing it through those eyes.
How did Scotland do at the Euros?
I just have a problem with the sporting element of it, and I hate the idea that we're facilitating bad sportsmanship, which I think is what you do if you blow up after 4 minutes and it's meant to be 4 minutes of added time, but in fact you only get 2 minutes of added time because the players have frustrated the process deliberately.
But what's worse sportsmanship? If you suddenly change the rules on the team that is winning as the referee because you're now in stoppage time. There's nothing in the laws of the game that says now you're in stoppage time, you have to stop the clock every time a player goes down. You have to give them those extra precious seconds. There's nothing.
But if in 90 minutes a player gets fouled or you give a free kick and the player then is sat on the floor for 3 minutes within the 90 minutes, you'd be adding that time on, wouldn't you?
3 minutes, you would. Yeah, but that didn't happen. It was an accumulation
we had 2 minutes.
No, I think it was. I think I don't think it was probably that much, and I think that accumulation of time. You do it for a major stoppage. You don't do it for 10 seconds here, 10 seconds there, 20 seconds here. You just don't. Like I say, I don't know what the referee did during the main time. I thought 4 minutes was quite generous for that second half as it was. And so, yeah, I just think I think this happens in every single game there is, and it's tournament football, so it's going to happen a little bit more. I understand your point, but look, Spain had every right to manage the game, and if the referee thought it was excessive, he would have booked them for time wasting or delaying the restart, I should say, not time wasting. So, and I didn't think it was excessive at any point. No single player was excessive. As a team, it may well have been, but you can't punish the team for one particular thing. Add the time on. I just don't think there's any need for it. I'm pretty sure the law says excessive stoppages. You add injury time on.
Yeah, all right.
Not the odd little kick flick. And England would have done exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing.
Yeah, and I think then if you felt that was being done deliberately to sort of kill the clock, I think that he should have added time for it. But there we go. We've got a different opinion, and I appreciate that. I think I'm in the minority when it comes to that. But I just get frustrated by the idea that we are facilitating poor sportsman's like behaviour. It goes against the whole interest in football. But there we go. I need to make a correction because we had an email that we dealt with last time from Claire, where she was talking about how she was refereeing and her daughter was refereeing as well. But I think I made a mistake because I think I said in the last episode that it was good that she'd come back to football, but I think she emailed in after the last episode and corrected me to say that she hadn't come back to football, which was new to football.
Yeah,
which is even better.
That's wonderful.
So especially since she, I think, was in my ballpark in terms of age, and so
it's a big ballpark, isn't it?
it's an aging ballpark, is what it is. But and so my only other news really is just to sort of report back about my trip to Vienna.
Absolutely. So let's just backtrack on that a little bit. So what was it, a couple of years ago? Was it 4 years ago now? 5 years ago? We were in Rome doing a European tournament together.
Yeah, Euro Games.
Yeah. And then it all got delayed again for COVID. I think we was due to go to Singapore, wasn't we, to do that again?
can't remember Singapore. It was something like Singapore or Hong Kong or something. No, it wouldn't have been that because it would have been Euro Games. But anyway, no, we were going to go to another tournament and it didn't happen for COVID.
Yeah.
But
and
this
Rome was in my retirement phase, and you pulled me out of retirement to go to Rome, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Met lots of wonderful people like Ryan Atkinson, Wes Linden, an ex who's going to come on the podcast actually and do an interview with us, which would be very exciting. He's an ex Premier League.
Yeah, he was meant to be in Vienna. But he was he's injured, so he couldn't make it to Vienna, which is a real shame.
Well, wish him well.
So
so give us the background on the tournament, what it is, what it does, and how you fared.
So it's a LGBTQ plus football tournament. They're held every year. They're called the Euro Games, and as you might expect, it's LGBTQ plus teams from all over Europe coming to compete in. This year it was 7-a-side, 11-a-side tournaments. And the referees come from, well, in fact, this year, all over the world. In fact, there's a majority of European referees, but we had some referees come over from the States as well. I think we had referees from 9 different countries in total refereeing the tournaments. And it was really, really good. The reason why I like these tournaments, I think I've said before, is I don't do the promotion route in FA affiliated football in the UK. And so that I find that I'm deprived, through my own choice, obviously, of the learning opportunities you get through coaching, as it's now called, and going down that promotion route and being assessed. And these tournaments give me the opportunity to both referee and be an assistant to much more experienced referees. I mean, Ryan Atkin obviously is a sort of relatively senior referee in the UK in the English game. Wes, as you say, is a sort of what level did Wes get to again?
Pretty sure he's Premier League.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's other referees who've got similar standing from other countries around the world. So it's a really lovely opportunity for me to referee as part of a team and to get feedback, because it's a really sort of open discussion that we have, and I'm always welcoming feedback. And so I loved it. It was great. It was just an opportunity for me to do both middles and do lines. I got given the 3rd, 4th place playoff in the men's 11-a-side.
Look at you go, hey? Well done.
Nice. I had Ryan running.
Producer Terry was there, wasn't he?
Producer Terry got the final.
Ah, well done, Producer Terry. How'd he do?
So the pod. Yeah, very, very well. Very, very well.
Red or yellow's hitting above average. Well done.
Red or yellow featuring in the 2 finals in the men's 11-side competition. And it made me think I should reflect on whether or not I should try and sort of go down the promotion path in the UK again, because
what do you think on that?
Well, do you know, I just really enjoyed. My concern is that I sort of welcomed the feedback from these sort of very senior referees, both in terms of what I was doing in the middle and on the line, but it's done in a really sort of friendly, positive, helpful way. And I just wonder whether or not, in the form of a sort of coaching and assessment, whether it's more critical rather than, I don't know. Maybe it's just my perception of things, and you might think I'm wrong because you're involved in that aspect of things. But because obviously I want to be a better referee. I don't want to just be, everybody think, oh, it's just a level 7. But having said that, it was really nice because I did the final, and Ryan, whose opinion I value, sort of said to me afterwards he had no observations to make at all about the way I'd done it. I'd sort of picked up on tips that I've been given by various people throughout the competition. I was trying to implement those.
Yeah, Ryan's great.
He's a great coach. I mean, I don't know if he does any form of referee coaching, but he's a really good coach. He keeps things very simple. He sort of does that classic thing of just giving you one headline to think about in a game. He doesn't try and overload you with millions of different things. He sort of gives you a headline. He then tells you what you do to improve that. And a lot of it was really simple stuff, but just one of the games he watched me, observed me from the stands as I was doing a middle, was about body language. He said that your body language is often sort of hunched over,
Deflated.
head nod up, and so he sort of talked to me about how to improve on that. Another game I was giving feedback about, I'd sort of turn my back on the goal after being a goal mouth incident, and I got talked to about always keeping eyes on what was going on. And I felt I came away from it at the end. I felt I came away a better referee.
Good.
Had a bit of fun playing with we had the foam which we were using.
Oh yeah. Excellent. The vanishing spray. Cool.
Vanishing spray was fun.
Enjoyed
using
that. Were you rigged up to comms?
So no. So Terry in the final had used comms, and it was fascinating because Ryan and I were in the stands watching the game, and I didn't appreciate that at Ryan's level, there's the assessor or fourth person will be listening in on those comms.
Yeah.
And they're recorded. I mean, I didn't appreciate that fact at all. But it was quite nice because during the final, he was sort of saying, "Oh, have a listen in," and it was really interesting hearing him brief them first of all about how to use comms and how people have the tendency to forget to use their flags when they got comms because they think they're just able to communicate it. And no, it was just a really good learning opportunity for me, which I really, really enjoyed. Which, as I say, made me think again about whether I should, reflect on trying to improve my refereeing skills back here in the UK.
Fantastic. I mean, you bring up a few good points. Like, it's so easy to, body language, I think, is so important because that's kind of, that goes into that perception of how you look. And it's not about whether you're, it's not objective looking. It's about whether you look professional, whether you look present, whether you look like you're enjoying yourself. And that physicality, being aware of that physicality on the pitch is so important. So important. And I think a lot of people underestimate it. They think as long as I'm getting the calls right, that's all that matters. But it's not, because that first impression, second impression, and on the football pitch, you're constantly giving a new impression of yourself every time you give another call, because you're drawing attention to yourself. Everyone forgets about you until you do something. And so every time you're kind of resetting an impression. And if they look at you and you look disinterested, you look a little bit deflated, you don't look like you're enjoying yourself or you're present, or sometimes you need different kinds of body language as well, right? You need authoritative body language, you need relaxed body language, you need friendly and open body language, you need strong and closed off body language. And all of that tells a picture and tells a story. And it's not necessarily about, so many referees, when it comes to this topic, so many referees only think about it as in the players they're dealing with, sometimes even more within the close vicinity of the foul that they've called or something like that. But really, when you explain to referees that it's about the stands, it's about the benches, it's about everyone watching and everyone who has a stake in the game that you are in charge of and how they are perceiving you as well, then suddenly you start to realize how the shape of your body and how the presence of your body and the way you're controlling your body and your running style and things like that, and the physicality side of your refereeing that you bring to it, suddenly you realize how important that becomes and how much that can help or hinder you. So that's a really, really, really good point. And I talk to referees about this so often. Obviously, my background in acting, body language and the way you stand, the way you walk, the way you move is so important, and it's definitely helped me with my football for sure.
But it was just interesting because the specific example was I'd given a free kick on the edge of the box, and it was correct decision. I got that call right. And Ryan sort of said, you walked up to the point where the free kick was, almost looking a bit apologetic. Your sort of head was down a bit. And he goes, you had absolutely no reason to be looking in any way sheepish at all.
Yeah.
You got the call completely right. Yeah. No one was complaining about it, and you should have been walking in there sort of head held high.
Absolutely.
Exerting your authority rather than looking as though you kind of felt bad for having done it, which very, very valid point. And I just hadn't appreciated that's what I was doing.
Yeah, fantastic.
So yeah, all in all, it was a really lovely experience. It's actually made me think, much to your no doubt annoyance, Adam, it's made me think that I might have to do another trip later this year because
why am I not surprised?
Interestingly, the world version of that tournament is taking place in Argentina in November.
Wow. That'll be cool.
And it's being supported by the Argentinian FA. So the game's being played at their training ground, at one of their stadiums. And so it'd be a great opportunity to, be part of that tournament. So I'm having a think about it. I had originally decided I wasn't going to go, but I'm having a rethink.
We need to get
but
it to Australia.
Well, the problem with Australia is that they've had it in Australia, I think, once or twice before in the past, and it's just such a vast expense for players to go all that distance. Because if you're going to Australia, it's a minimum of 2 weeks. So then it's expensive airfare from Europe, plus expensive accommodation. And so to get a squad of like 18 people to go to Australia,
that's fair.
It's a real challenge, which is a shame because, I love Australia, but it's difficult to get participants there. But
we love you, Edward.
I know.
Right. Anything else to catch up on, or should we crack on with some questions?
I was going to. Do you want to have a quick chat about the new law changes?
New laws,
for this season?
yes, we better do.
Because
I think you're more across this than I am, so this will be interesting.
Yeah, well, last time we spoke, we were talking about some of the things the FA were going to be trialling the lower divisions, but they hadn't released the IFAB laws for season 24-25, which they have now done. There's not a huge amount of changes. I think should we just run through them very, very quickly? Some of them are not going to be particularly relevant to grassroots, but I'll run through them in their entirety anyway. For those people that don't have this app is free. It's worth getting. It's the IFAB app. It bizarrely, as we've said before, when you search on your phone,
it's called Laws of the Game. Yeah, it's
Laws
so
of the Game.
Annoying.
So if you search IFAB, you won't find it on your phone, but Laws of the Game. It's really good because not only does it give you the option to download the laws for this season and previous seasons, but it always for each year tells you what the law changes have been in a fairly succinct fashion. So it's easy to get across what the changes are. So run through them very, very quickly.
Sorry, just quickly. I'm just on it now.
Yeah.
There's a whole Q&A section on law as well. How good's that?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. The app's really good. It's a really good app. And I think every referee rather, probably every footballer in fact, should have it. But so goal line technology, up until now, it's been a sort of buzzer on the wrist of the referee. It can now be communicated through the comms, so that's nothing particularly important. Substitutions, well, the use of additional permanent concussion substitutions is now available to all competitions. That's just a common sense development of the game. Each team must have a captain on the field of play who wears an identifying armband. That is now in the laws.
I thought that was in the laws.
Well, apparently not, because that is a new law for 24-25. So I think there's been a role attributed to the captain, what the captain can and can't do, but I don't think it's necessarily specified that they have to wear an identifying armband. Now, players' equipment. This is slightly controversial, Adam, but the summary of the change of the law says this: clarification that players are responsible for the size and suitability of their shin guards.
Players are responsible.
Yes.
That's not actually much of a change.
Well, what the changes are now, it says that shin guard, it always was the case that shin guards had to be made with suitable material. The change now is they must be of an appropriate size to provide reasonable protection and be covered by the socks. But then the new part is players are responsible for the size and suitability of their shin guards. It's placing now the onus on players who take the decision to have a postage stamp shin guard. They then make that choice. If they then break their shin bone in the course of the game due to inadequate protection from a tiny shin guard, it is now their responsibility, taking the responsibility away from the referees.
I actually don't think that helps us in any way, shape, or form. And I'll tell you why. Because if a player's not wearing appropriate shin pads and they still get hit on the shin, I say appropriate. If a player's not wearing shin pads that offer reasonable protection to the size of their shin and they get clipped on the top of their shin, they're still going to be angry. They're still going to be shouting at you for the foul. They're still going to have felt something that wasn't necessarily a foul because they haven't strapped their shin pad correctly. I know it's nice that it's now out of the referee's hands and it's all on the players, so you just have to check they're wearing them and whatever they wear is up to them. But I don't think it protects them in order to help the flow of the game. It might just lead to more frustration when players feel like they're getting hurt.
I agree. I mean, the bottom line is they'll still get if they were kicked in the shin, they would have got a free kick regardless of whether they had the shin pad or not. It's not going to affect that. But I do think it's important that now, in this ever increasing trend of thinner material, smaller shin
They're getting
guards,
ridiculous. They are getting
we've said this
ridiculous.
before. It's got fairly absurd. So now it's removed responsibility of that or consequence from that from us. And then also the going back to the team captain thing, it says that it has to be an armband issued or authorized by the relevant competition organizer, or a single coloured armband that may also have the word captain or the letter C or translation thereof, which also should be a single colour. So that's the change in so far as the main bits of equipment. There's been a rather bizarre change to the other equipment in that now gloves can be
and tracksuit bottoms.
Well, goalkeepers may wear tracksuit bottoms. Has always been the case. It's just now been moved around in the laws,
to other equipment.
And gloves can be worn provided that they're made of lightweight.
Gloves
material.
for players, not for goalkeepers.
Yes, for players.
That's fine.
Yeah. So they're not permitted. So that nothing drastic there. I suppose the big changes have really come in so far as Law 12, which is fouls misconduct, and then the penalty kick. So the big change in so far as fouls misconduct is that now non-deliberate handball offences for which penalties are awarded are to be sanctioned the same way as fouls which are an attempt to play the ball or challenge for the ball. So no longer the case that it's a red card for handball. Yeah. If it's a sort of not deliberate, but it's still a penalty, then it's now sanctioned by a yellow card, which I think kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's if we get the blimmin' handball law correctly applied, Adam, which they haven't changed.
Handball law is fine. That's because it's fine. It's very easy to tell. Did you have any issues with handball at the tournament? Sorry, I asked that question right at the wrong time when you was down in a can of Coke.
The answer is, as we both know, if the ball hits anybody's hand on the football pitch, several players will scream for handball.
Yeah, but if they don't know the law, that's not our problem.
The law. I know that, but the point I'm making is players don't understand the law as it stands at the moment.
Can we also just take a brief moment to appreciate the fact that Ed is now drinking Coke, not wine? That tournament really changed you, didn't it?
Well, it's also the fact it's midweek. I'm absolutely exhausted. It's 11:15 in London, and I'm trying desperately to stay awake. So I'm permitted to have a bit of caffeine. So yeah, I think that law change insofar as handball is concerned, I think is very, very sensible. And there's been some really sensible changes to the law on the penalty kick. So now that firstly, there's a clarification that part of the ball must touch or overhang the centre of the penalty mark. Well, I'm not really sure that was ever
no, that's just in line with the ball in or out of play, isn't it?
But now encroachment is really not going to be a factor unless it really interferes with the play. So so if the teammate, if the player taking the penalty kick, it should only be penalised if it impacts on the goalkeeper.
The only issue with that is impact with play on the direct association of the penalty kick, or on the direct association of the goalkeeper saving it, rebounding it, and then them getting the ball in. Like, surely it would only be from the kick itself, right?
Yeah. And it's just sensible because what's the point in saying we've got to retake a penalty because your player had a foot inside the penalty area?
Honestly, the table of encroachment is so confusing. I just say to referees, look, like, unless they're literally in line with the ball, don't call it.
100%.
Because you end up in a whole world of knots with law that is just so hard to get out of, and nobody's asking for it. If the penalty goes in, no one cares. If the penalty gets saved, no one cares. Everyone just cares about the effect of that penalty. Encroachment is it's like, I understand it, but it's such a tedious, difficult law to get right. It's just not worth trying.
Yeah. So that's just a very sensible change to the laws.
Lovely. Thanks for that.
And then the final one is in relation to temporary dismissals or sin bins. So the way IFAB describes the law change is that it says the guidelines have been revised regarding temporary dismissals, i.e. sin bins, most notably to specify that a temporary dismissed player can return to the field of play only during a stoppage, and
Right.
to simplify System B. Now, System B, if I remember correctly, is the temporary dismissal for some cautionable offences. So now it's been simplified, and I think this is being welcomed by everybody because the position now
Means
is
2 yellows equals a red,
two
whether it's a sin
yellows
bin or
and you're
not.
off.
Yep.
Correct. So
Yep.
we can all discard our ridiculous cards we had with
Matrix.
the
Just makes life
Matrix
so
of
much
death,
easier, doesn't it? Yep.
where you stood
Matrix
on the
of death.
pitch going, hold on, it was that was for dissent. Then he did a foul. All gone now.
Yep.
So I think it's all been simplified, which I
Good.
think is welcome news. And I saw people tweeting about emails they'd had from their respective FAs telling them that as of the 1st of July, any sin bin will be treated as a standard caution, incurring the administration fee, and a player receiving 2 yellow cards for dissent and or other offences will be dismissed from the field of play and not permitted to return. And that will result in suspension and an increased fine.
Just a note on that, though, that doesn't kick into force here in Australia, I think, until the 2025 season. So, because right now the season begun under the 2023, 2024 laws. And so, yeah, so we have to finish the season under those laws, and then we adopt the next set of laws the next year. So we're a bit behind, obviously, the regular European calendar for the season. But it'll probably be appropriate in the A-League because that runs concurrently with the European seasons and the Northern Hemisphere seasons. So yeah.
But as I say, go and get the IFAB Laws of the Game app. It's really, really good. And as you rightly observed, the Q&A section, which is a whole load of the sorts of practical questions that our law listeners email into us on a very regular basis. There's a whole load of those within there, and it's just worth an occasional read.
That doesn't mean to all of our loyal listeners, go and do those and don't send us questions in the WhatsApp community and stuff like that, because if you do that, we end up with no content.
Exactly. So
speaking of which, should we crack on with some questions?
Yeah, let's do some questions.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. So again, like just a quick mention, the WhatsApp community, you can find the link in the bio to the red or yellow WhatsApp community, and we have like loads of little sections in there. One's for listener questions, one for referee discussions, communities for each country you're from and stuff like that. So please join. We've got a growing community of loyal listeners, and it's a joy to hear from them every time they do. And we obviously send updates and things like that through to there as well. So we're going back a bit on these questions, so maybe we'll try and rattle through as many as we can in the next sort of 20 minutes or so. Tommy, who looks like he's from the UK based on the telephone number that I can see, he asked, player from Team A clears the ball and it's clearly going out for a throw-in to Team B. A spectator steals the ball on the line without it going out, or stops the ball maybe, on the line without it going out. Law states the drop ball should go to the last team who kicked the ball. So on this occasion, the team who were just about to concede the throw-in. Obviously, you then end up with a coach and players who are not happy. What do you do, Edward?
Well, I think this is another classic example of do what the game and what the players expect.
Yeah.
The expectation is this is a throw-in, just give the throw-in. I'd be astonished if any player on that field comes over to you and says, aha, it's not a throw-in though, is it? Because of the law that says that it should be, it's interference to the ball whilst it's still in play and it goes back to the team that's kicking that. So I think you just got to, it's one of those occasions where the law, I'm afraid, just doesn't always get it right if you apply it to the letter.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, make sure the spectator doesn't do it again. Probably ask the ground officials or the coaches from them and management from the team to make sure the spectators step back and don't interfere with play. But someone also actually replied to him in the group, what would the game expect? So I couldn't agree more on that. Robert mentioned that, and I couldn't agree more with that. It's just safe refereeing, right? Which we spoke about last episode, maybe episode before.
Yeah.
And that's what you want to look after.
I love the fact that sort of message of doing what the game expects is sort of starting to permeate through our listeners, because I hear that, and I heard that a number of times whilst we're away, you know, with multiple senior refs that was saying about how to approach things, and that's kind of always at the forefront of their mind. And I just think, generally speaking, you're not going to go far wrong if you keep that in mind on the pitch.
Absolutely right.
Yep. Good
Then
question. Next one.
Luke, advantage can be played for a wide range of offences. However, can it be applied after a foul throw? E.g., player A foul throws direct to team B, who then goes and scores. That's a great question, isn't it?
Hmm.
What do you reckon?
I think that my personal view is if it's a foul throw, you call the foul throw, and it goes back and you retake it again. I don't think you should be. I mean, I don't know from an absolute letter of the law perspective as to whether this answer is correct, but I think that I don't think you can give an advantage when there's been a sort of a breach of the laws of the game.
You
You
well, no, you
can.
do because obviously a breach of the laws of the game is a
Oh,
foul, right?
yeah, that's what you mean. Yeah,
So
okay.
yeah, I think on law, and Dion mentions this as well. So thank you, Dion, because this is where I was going. My thought is you can't play advantage when the ball's not in play. So like you can't play advantage off a free kick. You can't play advantage once the free kick's kind of like been kicked, or that's a bad example because we play advantages for free kick offences.
Yeah,
But yeah, like because the ball's not in play, you can't play advantage. So just stop it, reset, go again. The foul
yeah.
throw, like yeah, the ball has to be in play for you to play advantage.
I also just
Um,
think from a sort of visual perspective, you don't want to kind of be ignoring what to everybody's a flagrant sort of breach of the laws of the
I mean,
game.
yeah, I also think foul throws as well are so like trepidatious. Like I like so seldom call them. They're a lot more frequent in junior football, but in senior football, one, no one really knows what a throw is, and two, you're walking down a path. If you call one, everyone wants them all to be foul throws. No one,
Well,
it's like handball, in your opinion. No one knows what a foul throw really is. So if people just prefer playing, getting on with it. Let's just go.
it's interesting, is it? Because I think that the law of how to do a legitimate throw in couldn't be simpler, and yet I still see a grassroots football people doing foul throws, and I think you're spot on when you say about you don't kind of give them all time, because my view is, like you say, if you start giving them, right,
Mm.
then everybody is going to be appealing every decision on a foul throw, which I think is a nonsense. You just don't want to be stopping the game constantly to do that.
Yeah.
We said before about you're going to be stricter on it when it's in the final third of the field,
Hmm.
where there's potential for something to
Hmm.
flow from the constant foul throw. We both
Yep.
agree on that, but I think in the main, I mean, I get fed up in games of football, and it happened whilst I was away. Just everybody screaming. There's a throw in the middle of the pitch where he throws it back to his own defender. There's
And they
no
want to
one
foul throw.
challenging for the ball, and they want
Yep.
a foul throw. I'm just
Yep.
like, I just sort of tell people to get on with it. I mean,
Well,
it's just
absolutely.
just
Get on with it. Or
ridiculous.
I'd just say to him, well, you tell me what was wrong with the throw. And by that point, they're too busy talking to you. Play's moved on, and then you
I
just run away from
know.
them. That's all I do. You can't legislate for stupid.
No,
Right. Claire asks, and this is Claire who got in touch before. So thank you,
fair play.
Claire.
Yep.
Yes. So my question is one of principle. Would you rather get a decision right or maintain your authority? I gave a penalty decision yesterday that on reflection I thought might have been wrong. I therefore annulled the penalty. This caused such a kerfuffle that I thought next time just sticking with it regardless. Whether it was right or wrong, should I have just stuck with it? What a question.
Oh, what a question.
There's so many
Uh,
layers to this.
it almost sort of sends shivers down my spine as she describes that, because I think everybody has been in a situation where they've given a decision and you kind of almost immediately start to doubt it yourself. And the that's fine if it's not a significant event. You've given a corner and you immediately start thinking to yourself, oh, crikey, I think I've got that wrong. And then you think a whole load of players come to you saying, I've got that wrong. I then don't have a problem about saying, okay, my mistake. I didn't have a great angle on it. It's quite obvious from everybody's reaction, what he's saying. It's a goal kick. I don't think
Mm,
you lose any respect in being human, accepting you may have made a mistake. But I think in the situation where she has just described it, I think I think changing your decision in terms of, so far as the penalty is concerned, undermines your authority on the pitch. And I think I personally speaking would have just stuck with my penalty. Uh, you make mistakes. That's reality. I think if you start reviewing and self VARing your decisions, you're setting yourself up for a world of pain.
yeah,
That's my
yeah.
view.
I think generally your instinct is right. Generally. I think obviously, if you get different information from your assistant referees in a situation like that, then I think it's fair. But it has to be a discussion, and you still have to be the leader of that discussion in a penalty situation. Now, I
Yeah,
know as
I'm
well as
sorry.
you
Yeah,
know,
yeah. Sorry
Claire
to interrupt. I was
probably
going to say
didn't
is
have. Sorry, go
your
on.
yeah. The point I was going to make is I was answering probably from what I anticipate was Claire's perspective, which was
Oh, she didn't have assistant referees.
club no assistants or club
Yeah. Oh,
assistants.
absolutely right.
But I
And I
think you're
totally
spot
understand that.
on. It's different if you got assistants. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt.
No, no, no. And she probably didn't have assistant referees. So then, what information is she going to get from anybody, right? I get that. I think it's so difficult, isn't it? I think with a penalty, it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to disappoint one team and disappoint the other. But at least you've made a strong decision. And players, right or wrong, they do like a strong, assertive, authoritative referee who is willing to confidently back themselves in certain situations. Upon reflection post game and slightly more discussion, and when the temperature of the situation has calmed down, you might be able to have a discussion with them and say, maybe it was a bit harsh, maybe I didn't quite get the arm right, but that's football, I'm afraid. At the time, what I saw, my instinct told me this. Let's go. It doesn't matter what you do with a penalty. 11 people are going to agree. 11 people are going to disagree. And I think at the end of the day, if you feel like you've seen enough to give it, chances are your instinct is probably more right than wrong. And yeah, like it. The other thing as well, when you undo a decision like that, is it makes the next 20 minutes, 30 minutes, the remainder of the game almost impossible, because the team who you gave the penalty against and then reversed are going to be on your side. And then the team
Yeah,
who you gave the penalty for and then reversed, they're going to question every foul you give for the next X amount of time, more so than if it was the wrong decision. I do think players generally accept the fact that you might get a decision wrong, an important
yeah,
decision or not, penalties are. But I don't think they're going to accept the fact when you show doubt and when you show flippancy in that decision making process.
yeah,
So it is a great question, and I know it's not great. And I've done it as well. Like sometimes I get a big decision wrong, and then
yeah,
you can just apologize, hold your hands up, but you still have to execute that decision. And then 2, 3 minutes later, you can have a much calmer discussion about it and go, yeah, I probably got it wrong, you know, um, during the game. But it also comes down to skill, respect players have for you, your relationship with those on the field, on how you can navigate those discussions. And probably at Claire's level in New Hampshire, in England, sort of, if on the pitches of Southampton or Portsmouth, I can't imagine they're particularly people who have good working relationships with referees, like what I do at the level I used to referee. Haven't done much this season, but you can have different conversations based on different contexts.
yeah. And the point you make about having a conversation with somebody later on actually happened in one of my games in Vienna, and I had Alex Baker. I don't know if he was in
I
Rome with us.
recognise
Was
the
he?
name. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, Alex, I think he was a level 4, but he's had some. I think he had some health issues. He hasn't been doing much refereeing recently. Although I should say congratulations to Alex. God,
Alex,
it's late. It's
I'll
late.
always say you congratulations. What for? What did I do?
He's just been voted onto the FA board,
Oh,
um,
fantastic.
which happened last week, which is fantastic. He found it
Wasn't
out before he.
Alex part of the was it new disciplinary regulations?
Yeah, he was on. He was
Yeah.
part of the diversity
Yeah,
workforce
he
and
was in Rome.
was
Yeah.
doing some FA work, refereeing work with the FA on
Mm.
that. But interestingly, he was assistant for me on one of the games, and he came and spoke to it at half time. And there'd been a player running towards the box. I felt that he hadn't been fouled. I thought he'd lost control of the ball, and I didn't give a free kick. But
Mm.
interestingly, Alex came to me at half time and said, "Oh, just could we talk through that instant? He was heading towards goal.
Mm.
The player didn't seem to really get any contact with the ball. He did seem to take the player out. And if he was outside the box, why didn't you give the free kick?" He sort of said, "I think if it was a free kick." And I handily went up to the player
Mm.
concerned, who'd been aggrieved that I hadn't given the free kick, and I said, "Look, spoken to my assistant. He wasn't in a position because on the other side of the field to flag for it because it wasn't his quadrant, but he thought from his perspective you've been fouled." And I said, I'm sorry that wasn't the angle I had of it." And it is interesting. I don't think it undermines you by saying to people, in a conversation, I think I may have made an error. I'm sorry about that.
Mm.
But yeah, I wouldn't have overruled myself on a decision like a penalty. But it was a great question.
Yeah, fantastic.
Really, really good question.
Robert, he says one of the most common shouts on a footy field is hands ref or in the back, particularly on throw-ins and challenges from high balls. What do you look for in these challenges, particularly when one player jumps and one doesn't? And then Ed replied, great question. We will try and deal with this in next week's recording. And that question was posted on the 2nd of May. So
well, I hope he's still a listener. He's probably like given up on us, but if he hasn't, thank you very much.
Thanks, Robert.
The question.
It's a great question, isn't it?
It's a great question. There's two aspects to it. One, which we can deal with pretty quickly, which is everybody seems to think that shouting things out on the pitch is in some form or another a breach of the laws.
Yeah, which isn't.
But it's not, because it's shouting thing like, unless it's designed to put other players off and stop them from challenging the ball, etc. But the real thing here is about this is a big issue on the pitch, because you know, there are a lot of challenges where two people are sort of tussling for the ball. My way of dealing with it is I'm a bit like you now. In fact, I'm quite proactive in sort of shouting at players when that's about to happen. Hands down, no hands in the back, etc., which I think can try and limit it a bit. But I think what you got to try and work out is whether or not somebody's gaining an advantage by having their hands up. The instinctive behavior of most players when one's in front of the other is they kind of put their hands in front of them to sort of put distance between them and the player. I don't think there's an issue with that, provided it's not done in such a way that it completely pushes the other player away from their course of being able to challenge fairly for the ball. And so I think there's a fine line that you've got to determine as to whether or not it's been done because they're trying just generally to play with the ball, or it's been done as a device to try and stop the other player from challenging.
Yeah, I mean, generally I look for a couple of things. I look for how big is the extension of the arm in the back of the other player, and then if I think that extension is too great, how much has it impacted the player who's been pushed win the ball? Like if the player gets pushed and still wins the ball and heads it to one of his teammates, I'm playing it through, right? They've done well. They've beaten the foul. If I feel like if I see anyone pushing down on a player, I'll probably call that. But I think, there's always going to be a bit of physicality when two players are jumping. And I think we need to allow that. But like I say, think about it from everybody else's point of view. If they can see a big extension of two arms and you can sell that with also demonstrating what you did, that's a foul. See you later. Then it's going to help you. And that's what it comes down to. How much can everyone else see that push? Or how much are you just really picking up on just a bit of physicality as two players are jumping? Obviously, you can't use another one as a climbing frame.
No.
But yeah, generally, there is going to be a bit of touchy-pushy, but it all comes down to has that touchy-pushy... Because some players just stand still on the floor, don't they? Because they know a defender's behind them, and the defender just out-jumps them and heads the ball. It's like, you're not even trying to get the ball. You're just literally trying to pull a foul out of me. So I don't punish that. And generally, I'd say I have quite a good track record on this. I seldom get complaints about the way I call these situations. So yeah, if you see big two clear arms, then or any downward pressure on a player, I'd say call it. Anything other than that, see how the challenge plays out, see where the ball goes after, and then you can always bring it back if you need to.
And I always, if I think that a player's sort of on the limit of using their arms and perhaps just getting a slight advantage, but I haven't given a free kick, I will invariably find an opportunity to have a quick word with the player and say, your hands are up on that challenge.
Yep.
You need to be careful with your hands, because if I see you using them again,
Yep.
I'll give a free kick. And so you kind of put them on notice. And I kind of do that quite a bit so they know you're watching it.
I also am probably a tiny bit more lenient about it in penalty and corner situations. Like if you can end up giving a penalty, like a corner or an attacking free kick, I allow a little more physicality in those situations compared to like a free kick in the middle of the pitch. But yeah, definitely, if you think arms are getting a bit close, it's always wise to have a discussion, set the player up, say, I can't give you the next one. That was close. That was on the limit. Another one like that, and I'm calling it. And then you'd be amazed what positive response you get from the players. Cool.
Yeah,
Mon, Mon, a ball is fed through towards goal. It is coming to the penalty area. The keeper jumps up and punches it away. As he jumps, he lifts with one knee, which is his jumping style. As he punches it away, the striker is running in as well to get to the ball. He dips his head a bit and makes contact with the keeper's knee. It's children are playing. It's a youth game. Should there be a caution to the keeper, or is the attacker putting themselves in a reckless position, knowing that the keeper will be jumping for the ball? Oh, that's tough.
Another really good question.
That's a great question, Mon.
And in fact, funnily enough, in one of the seven-side women's games that I was refereeing last week, I almost had the exact same question posed to me by one of the players who sort of said, well, the keeper was going up and sort of in this fashion, and so it stops me from challenging for the ball because if I challenge the ball, I'm going to put myself at risk by getting the knee in my head. And it is a bit of a difficult situation because if the player, if the goalkeeper jumps up for the ball like that and the player backs away from that challenge, then there's nothing to give because they haven't put themselves at risk. They haven't challenged. They made a decision. It sounds a bit weird saying that because the player then came back to me and said, well, what you're saying is that I need to risk getting concussion before I can get a foul. And in some respects, yes, that is the answer. I'm afraid you do. But in the situation that's just been described there, if it's the goalkeeper's jumping style,
how do you know it's a jumping style though? I like that. Well, I find that a bit of a odd phrase because everyone jumps in different manners in different situations for the ball differently, right? Like it's not like you've analyzed this goalkeeper 400 times and gone, well, that's how he jumps. You either jump dangerously or you don't jump dangerously, and you're going to jump differently depending on every situation, I think.
So your view is what that the lifting the knee up is dangerous play, do you?
No, I don't actually. I think it's fine. I think it's fine. Okay. I see no dramas. I think, so many times a goalkeeper would jump off one leg with one knee up to grab a ball that's high in the air. I think that's fine. I don't think there's anything unnatural about that. It always comes down to, has the goalkeeper impeded the progress of an opponent unfairly? And no, because there's no contact. I know a player's got to evade, but that's football. If the forward, if the striker can avoid the contact, then the pass wasn't good enough. And I know that sounds harsh, but if contact is made, then the pass is right, and then the goalkeeper is in trouble because he's made the contact potentially, or the pass wasn't good enough and the forwards run in and made contact, and then there's a foul there. So it's like if the goalkeeper can win the ball fairly, cleanly, without a challenge, and he's grabbing the ball, who cares? That's football. You need to get the pass better. You need to get your forward to make a better run. You can't penalise a goalkeeper for being able to get a ball cleanly with no one around him.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think the only sort of thing I'd say in addition to that is if, however, you think that the goalkeeper's deliberately putting up a leg in order to keep the player away, then I
you can call
call it then
different thing. You can call indirect free kick.
Dangerous play or whatever, but absolutely.
Well, it's impeding the progress, isn't it? But I mean, it does bring up another point, like these high foots and similar to the Harry Kane penalty, I suppose. But kind of like, I always look at who in that situation, who has more. It always comes down to the context of where the ball is and what players are going for the ball, right? So, for instance, if the ball's in the air, like let's say the ball's at hip height and the defender puts his foot up to play that and an attacker puts their head down to play it, at hip height, who's more like what part of the body are you more likely to play the ball with in that situation? Probably the foot. Yeah. Therefore, the attacker is causing the danger by putting his head down that low. Bring it up to the shoulder, and a defender's putting his leg up to a shoulder height, and an attacker's putting their head in to head the ball, then the defender is causing the danger because you don't play the ball with your foot at shoulder height. That's not where you play the ball. Yeah. And, and the reason we're allowed to play the ball with the head, with the chest, with, the whole body other than the arms is for these reasons. And so each time you have to look at the whole context of that situation. Where is the ball? And is it right that you're going to be playing the ball in that manner in that sense? And then if they get it wrong, if the contact is caused because of it, then you have to determine who isn't playing the ball in the right way.
So just very quickly on that Harry Kane penalty, was it in the final that one?
Was it semi-final?
Semi-final.
Yeah.
I think I spoke to you at the time, and
Mm.
in normal play, I didn't think it was a penalty. But the second I saw the replay, my immediate thought was that's going to go to VAR because there was contact. So strictly speaking, it was a foul. But I think I also remarked here, I'm not sure what else a defender is meant to do in that situation. The ball
not play the ball with his studs when it is halfway up the leg of the attacker. At the end of the day, the contact is made. Like, I'm sorry. At the end of the day, I don't mean to shout at you. At the end of the day, the contact is made because the defender gets to the ball late.
But if the defender
doesn't matter.
All he does is put a foot up to try and block the shot.
Fine. If he's trying to block the shot. You don't need to make contact with the player to block the shot. If you're blocking the shot, you're blocking the ball. You're not making contact with the player.
Blimey. There we go. That's me.
But that's true, isn't it? Is that not true? How many times do you how many times do you make contact, like you've played? How many times do you make contact with the player when you're blocking a shot? And also, why are you blocking the shot with your full bottom of your boot and your studs? Your body is bigger than that. Block the shot with your body.
The ball had bounced up. Harry Kane is having to change his angle so he can kick it at sort of waist height, and the player who's trying to defend him, who was a bit of a distance away, puts his foot up to try and block it. And I mean, listen, I'm not saying you it's not a penalty. I just didn't.
No,
it didn't feel like to me in normal play. It didn't feel like a penalty.
I totally understand the frustration because people will say the follow through from Harry Kane from the shot has made the contact. But at the end of the day, the defender's hanging his leg in the air. And why? You don't play the ball there. You don't block the ball in that manner with the bottom of your boot, the smallest part of your body. As a defender, if you're going to block the ball, you block it with your body. You close the space. You don't stick your foot up in the air. If you're going to put your foot up in the air, similar to like if you're going to put your hands up in the air in the penalty area, you're asking for problems. You're just asking for problems. It's bad defending.
Well, on that animated point, Adam.
The next question is from Craig, actually, which is I was going to say it's probably a good line to draw under because he asked about pre-season fitness, even though the pre-season's nearly over. But just quickly on that, like there's a blog on my website. I've posted it in the WhatsApp community as well, all about pre-season fitness for referees, which I think I wrote in the last pre-season last year.
You did? Can you put? And I think last year I sort of said to you that
it's too complex.
A version for amateurs and grassroots. But can you put the link in the show notes for people
for sure.
So that
Absolutely.
they can have a look at it?
And then we'll discuss it a bit more next show.
If we can try and organise a show next week, then we're still pre-season. We can maybe talk about things that people at grassroots level can do.
Absolutely. But
it's 11:15, Adam. It's a
I know
night.
You need to go to bed. I
need to walk the dog and go to bed. You no,
excellent.
Good.
I need to start my day. Right, Edward.
I know.
It's been an absolute delight. Adam. It is, isn't it?
It has. It's been lovely to see you again.
It's nice to see you finally in London for enough time to record the podcast.
And it's nice to see you not on your travels and we get some decent Wi-Fi.
I know, that does help, doesn't it? Massively. All right, my friend. I'll speak to you real soon. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for making it to the end of another episode of Red or Yellow. You're clearly a very fit listener. May I gently remind you to like and subscribe to this podcast in your podcast app. That way, when we release a new episode, our meandering chats will magically appear on your phone. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, please feel free to share it with one of your friends when they ask for a podcast recommendation. Word of mouth goes a long way, and no more so than yours. Don't forget, you can get 10% off any refereeing equipment that you might need if you head to processports.com and use the code RedOrYellow10 at checkout. Thank you so much for listening this week, and don't forget to follow us on social media. It's at Red or Yellow Pod, and please feel free to send us any questions that you may have via DM, or you can email redorYellowpod@gmail.com. We cannot wait to speak to you again very, very soon. Ciao, ciao.